Greetings. Our Frederick Riddle here with another episode of Christian News and Views. This is episode 2651, and this is Friday. And I call this the pause to reflect on war, in particular the war going on right now. And so I'm doing it a little different than I normally do this episode or these episodes. Mostly because I think it's going to portray how I feel, and I'm I'm interested in knowing what you feel as well. This has been an interesting week. It's been all over the map, really, as far as all the things that are going on. But even in the war, it's been interesting. This has been particularly true regarding the war in Iran. So as I pause to reflect on the war and its ongoing development, I have heard hand wringing. Oh no, oh no, we don't have a hand game. We don't know what we're going to do. Well, what was it going to happen? That's by the liberals. On the other hand, you have the strong confidence by the Trump administration that things are going well. And in fact, they're saying, and they back it up with facts, that it's actually ahead of schedule. As for an end game, they claim to have one. What makes it so difficult to get the truth is the liberal news media's tendency to tilt the news in a negative direction. Where once we could trust the news coverage, we can't. Now we can't. They raise issues that are baseless, and you probably have heard them as well as myself. They'll ask questions. I have seen some where they've actually asked questions, and it was they knew the answer, they knew the correct answer, but they twisted it, and it was obvious. Like I said, they raise issues that are baseless, make accusations that often are outright lies, and they quote biased polls. You've heard me before talk about polls. Now I've explained to you why not only that they are unreliable, but why. Not going to get into that today, but they quote them. And then they actually will, even perhaps, and sometimes they'll actually exaggerate what the poll actually says. And sometimes they just talk nonsense. That is why I am pausing today to take another look at this situation. So while trying to make sense from all of the static out there is hard, I believe the right course is to rely on those sources which have been consistent and support the following conclusions. So you may or may not agree with my conclusions, but that's fine. You're allowed to disagree. As I've heard others say before, you're allowed to be wrong. But then again, so am I. I'm just a simple single person here with my own opinions. I encourage you to have your own. What is your thinking on this war? And as far as that goes, not just the war itself, but the side issues, the rise in gas. Now here where I live, it's actually started to drift down a little bit. And so, how long is this going to happen? Is there a conclusion? Is there an end game? Some of these questions they ask may not be legitimate questions, but they do cause us to stop and think for ourselves. So let's get on my list of things that I have come to some conclusions as of today. They can change, but this is where I am right now. Here's the first one. Iranian Navy is basically destroyed for all practical purposes. What was I forget who said this, but we're sharing the ocean with the Iranian Navy. We're on the top of the ocean and they're on the bottom. I thought that was funny when I heard it. It was pretty accurate too, I think. The Iranian Air Force has been destroyed, largely destroyed, or maybe completely, or it's at least in hiding. Iran's government is on its knees, but still desperately clinging to power. And part of that is because of the Revolutionary Guard. While they've been hurt, damaged, and I think they've lost some of their leaders, they still are active. They still have power, which goes to the next conclusion. The Iranian people have not yet risen up, partly because of the Revolutionary Guard, who continues to have control. There's going to come a point in time where the people are going to have to make a choice, and maybe that's come already, but they have to make a choice. Do they really want freedom? Do they really want to have a government that represents them, that a government that they can be proud of, a government that instead of being their enemy, which it is right now, is actually their friend? They don't have to live in fear of the government. Well, if they want that, then they sooner or later they got to make a decision, because this war is not going to go on forever. And part of the reasoning in this war was, while not a public statement, and while not a even a necessary component as far as the United States is concerned for its mission, it is something that the United States is responding to their cries for help. But when you ask for help and it comes, there is an obligation on your part to do what you promised or you have indicated you wanted to do. The opportunity is there. And really, they can do some things that are, that our government, our intelligence apparatus, and the Israeli intelligence apparatus are watching very closely. I don't know about the United States, but I'm pretty sure Israel has agents in there. I know Iran claims to have killed one of them. Don't know if that's true or not, but there's just not just one. They have a lot of agents in there, and they have other things, maybe drones and other things that they have that are enabling them to monitor the situation up close, to the point they even know where leaders are meeting and so forth, and can actually bomb them while they're meeting. So the Revolutionary Guard is still in control, but it's more like by fingertips now, as opposed to previously. Another conclusion is there is an end game. You hear this all the time in news media. Well, they haven't said what the end game is. Yeah, they have. You weren't listening. I believe that aside from what has been said, underlining the whole thing is that it includes absolute collapse of the Iranian government. And if you have that, then the opportunity for the people to step in and form a new government is there. But the first part of the end game was to destroy their capability to fire nuclear weapons. They have fired weapons, but they're not nuclear. And they started out by firing masses of weapons and missiles and drones. Those have diminished both in size and frequency. And it depends upon the news coming out as to how much it's decreased, but it seems to have decreased quite a bit. They can still get together, a lot of them, and mass them together. And now they have involved, I think, the cluster bombs, which makes it a little harder to stop. But it's still the frequency and the immensity of their attack, their counterattacks, have diminished. The Straits of Hormuz, that is still a war zone. We've got ships in there, and they're protecting. But even so, even if they don't have the Iron Dome. But even if they did, there might be a missile or so that would still get through. And so that has people. And I'm not going to judge them for this. I would be worried if that was my ship, and I had a crew. I'd be worried about my crew. So I don't know if I'd be wanting to go into that war zone. It is a war zone. And so uh, as long as there's a missiles coming, even just one, it's a makes keeps it as war zone, which serves them to a degree. One of the things, as far as the United States is concerned, we have our own abilities as far as manufacturing our own oil, gas reserves, and all that stuff. Uh, and it seems like we've already started to lean on that because while prices here have stabilized a little bit, in other countries they're still going up. So that would seem that we're doing something along the line, perhaps, of using our own supplies, our own resources. Iranians themselves do not have an unlimited supply of missiles and drones. Now, yes, they do claim to have them. And they also claim that they have the capacity and are continuing to manufacture missiles and drones. They've been at least once that they made that claim. But it's really rather doubtful. And they would have to, first of all, since most of the factories and everything have been destroyed, they would have to have underground facilities. And we have bunker busting bombs that can be dropped. So if they are doing it, they're well hidden, but sooner or later, our forces will find them and destroy them. That's my conclusion on that. I believe the war itself is nearing conclusion. I said before, it's got an end game. I also have said that the Iranian government is on its knees, hanging by its fingernails, really. So, and I've been trying to follow the war, and it seems to be like stages are going into it, stages or phases. And the first part where we went into with a mass bombing, boom, 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 boom. Then they started moving their ships around. And I don't know how accurate this is, but what I saw was that we put ourselves, whereas before it was maybe one or two ship aircraft carrier and their task force around them that were launching the attacks, but those ships have since moved. And now they're sort of like a three prong, and I only got two hands, so I don't know how I'm going to do this. We'll do this like this. They're like this, sort of. Right here is Iran, and they're like this. And right here in this open area, another task force. So you got three different task forces spread out. And got Iran in a unbreakable, it seems to me, vice. And they're turning up the power bit by bit by bit. So it's not like we threw everything that we had and now we're throwing less. We're actually doing more. And we're doing it more strategic. First was just mass bombing. That was to weaken them, knock out their Air Force right off the bat, knock out their Navy. They've accomplished both of those. So the United States and Israel have air superiority. Then they have the ships now positioned. They moved them around during the war. And now they're in a position to sort of put, like I said, a vice that's going to get slowly and slowly and slowly crush them. And all along, they're being given the opportunity to surrender. They're probably not going to. It's not that they may not want to, but they know that if they do, not only is their career gone, but many of them will have to stand trial for their atrocities that they've committed. So they might want to prefer to go down fighting. Like I said, I believe the war is again. I do not believe this is the war mentioned in Ezekiel 38. I've pointed that out to you. I have not seen any evidence that would change how I view it. On the unwalled villages argument, so far, no one has even attempted to respond to that. And I think the reason is because there is no real response to it. It is what it is. And so Israel was not and is not at peace. But there will come a day when they will be. And when that happens, then you'll see the Ezekiel 38 fulfilled. So it's very possible that that whole thing, what's going on right now, is a preview of what will happen in the future. However, in the future, we're talking post-Trump, whoever, and not necessarily immediate future either. It's argued, and I believe it, we are in the end times right now. Been in the end times ever since Christ went to the cross. We are closer to the actual end time, actual ending, than we've ever been. We now understand the book of Revelation better than we've ever understood. We see things that they describe now coming true. We now understand why some of the things that John described in Revelation, when we looked at them and shook our head, scratched our head, and whatever, now we are seeing what he's. You got to remember, he's seeing these things in the future, understanding them from his position in the past. He didn't understand helicopters. He didn't understand jets, bombers, or any of that stuff. They didn't exist. So he came up with his own descriptions. What he saw was real, but he had to interpret it in where he was. And he tried to convey that to us, more or less, if you want to, in picture form. And so we are now seeing things like that happen. I never thought that when it talked about the two witnesses and that the whole world would see them, see their ministry and see their death and their resurrection, by the way, they would see it in living color, so to speak. Today, yeah, it's normal. We see things happening all over the world instantly as it happens. And so we know that it's going to happen. And we know that that's in the future, and we're getting closer and closer to it. I believe that the image that the Antichrist creates or makes, however they want to say it, is actually an AI created image. He's using AI. AI is so growing so fast and so powerful already that it can do things. And I use AI myself, and I'm learning how to use it more and more. And it's a very powerful tool. But he's going to take it to a level that we've never seen. So the thing is this, that's my outlook, how I'm looking at things, where I'm at right now. Am I dug in? Some of it maybe, but some of it no. Facts tend to sometimes be covered and don't get revealed until later. Some things that I've talked about today, I am absolutely sure of. Some things I think, well, you could turn around this way or that way. But right now, this is where I'm at. So I'm interested in what you have to say. Just don't listen to me and just I don't agree with you. Tell me why. Let's have a dialogue and tell me why. Not in anger, and not in name calling or any of that. Just we have an adult conversation, and who knows, your view may prevail, and your view may end up being, and to some degree, on this podcast. Well, that's it for today. This again is sponsored to you for you by T&R Independent Books, a Christian indie publisher. We teach you how to write. We'll publish your books. If you already know how to write, we'll publish your books. And we ask you to have a Christian worldview, doctrinally and every other way. If you're going to use scripture, we insist that it be the King James Version Bible as a resource, so that we all are on the same page, so to speak, that we all can understand from the same Bible, the only Bible for Christian speaking, for English speaking people. Well, you have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode.